So Doctor Who is well into Russell T Davies' second tenure with upcoming series filmed and the new spin-off in development. In this video, I want to contrast how different this new era is to his original, more grounded approach, and ironically, whether this new era is fresh enough. Before I go into my thoughts, all the criticism delivered isn't any hate, and I want to make clear that I'm really enjoying this new era, and I think that it's very interesting to analyse as a second try for RTD. It was a pretty risky move for RTD to decide to return, as his old era is so beloved, and if fans disliked his new stuff, it could taint their feelings on the showrunner. I know that with series 1 to 4 being arguably so perfect, going at it again in any way is ripe for criticism and comparison, and that's something I've seen a lot from the fandom. I think that generally the specials felt a lot more what you might expect from another attempt from RTD. This isn't simply because the Doctor and Donna were back, but the stories themselves simply felt more aligned to the style of his original run. In fact, they felt pretty well structured, almost like missing episodes from RTD's run. This could be seen as safe, however, and I wouldn't necessarily like that for a full season. Now, in the Ninth Doctor, RTD really added whole new layers of complexity to the character of the Doctor, and even the companion in Rose. The Doctor grappled with a dark history of trauma, and so it makes sense with a new era to have a new incarnation be healed from that darkness, full of unbridled joy. I can't praise Gatwa and Millie enough, and love how different and fun the two feel, but the lack of drama between the two does make a sense of complexity difficult to mine. And I struggle to buy into their friendship because of the limited episode count. We barely get to know Ruby before she's found out her biological mother and says goodbye to the Doctor. Most of the stuff on paper here sounds good. The Doctor is very different from that first run, and therefore fresh and exciting. The problem is that such a free version of the character means we don't get to buy into any conflict, which fuels good drama. And without a lot of these kinds of scenarios, relationships can feel hollow, because we all have good and bad moments in real life. It's not some strict line of positive or negative feelings. At the same time, if the Doctor were to be darker, that would probably be too similar to his first two Doctors, and therefore retreading old ground. I'm not saying I have an answer, it's got to be difficult to keep the Doctor fresh after 15 incarnations, so Gat was doing a lot performance-wise. However, I don't think Ruby Sunday can be explained so easily. In fact, in many ways, I think creating unique companions is probably a lot easier. The Doctor is an enigma much of the time, but the companion really needs to be entertaining, as the audience's surrogate character strapped into the Doctor's situations. There's so much to observe and react to that tells us about their character. And so many opportunities for conversations to develop and complexity to evolve. Often fans criticise Clara Oswald for being a bit of a mixed companion, but she gets many great TARDIS scenes or conflict with 12, reminding us how great she is as a character. She's an outspoken voice which never fades into the background, even if I don't buy into her romantic or family relationships. Moffat developed Clara a lot, with passionate interactions and even grief through the Doctor. Now, I know Ruby Sunday's only had one season of adventures, however, she feels like one of the weakest companions in a long time. The acting is great, the writing is also good in terms of dialogue, but the character doesn't have much of this family life I talked about. Nor has she talked in much depth to the Doctor. Couple these things with her poorly handled mystery mother, and it feels like there's a lack of care here. I'm all for the unhinged quality that Russell is taking to Doctor Who. The new episodes feel very light-hearted, a lot more balls to the wall fun and open, but at the same time that means many people have seen the show as Disney-fied. The show has a slightly bigger budget now, and Disney do have an input in the show. Russell T Davies has assured that though he gets notes from Disney, ultimately his creative vision isn't limited and he chooses what to take on. However, I'm not so sure about this. The new Doctor Who time slot caters towards American audiences, and the casting of Virada Sefu from Star Wars Andor, a Disney Plus show, and of course the dance sequence in Devil's Cord, as well as the lack of traditional Doctor Who baddies with new fantastical gods in use, it all combines to maybe imply that Disney does have more of a say than Russell is letting on. I actually liked a lot of Series 14, but I just hope that we do also see some more traditional Doctor Who baddies, and I wouldn't be happy if this was something Disney was pushing creatively. RTD's writing has always been camp and childish, but I'd hate to see this being forced into the narrative by Disney. If all these things are just creative choices from RTD, then I'm more than happy with much of it. Creatives shouldn't be forced to alter their show to match a streaming service, be it Disney, Netflix, or other. If you get a writer, they should be allowed to put their full vision into the scene, not limited by streaming overlords. A lot of haters will use the Disney deal to fuel baseless arguments, but I think it's true that Disney has altered the show on some levels. I could be completely wrong. The truth is we don't actually know how much of it's changed. It's just RTD trying new stuff, and Disney saying what they want to see. We all know Russell can write like his first run as seen in the specials, so it's completely possible this new era is just a new perspective. After all, why run a show again if you're not going to do something different to shake things up? Talking about shaking things up, I think this new era feels like a bit of an anomaly. As I've said, the show does feel very different from his original run in many ways, but at the same time there's lots of similarities. There are some lines or episode concepts that are straight from his first run, and that's something I can't vibe with. In Space Babies, we see Ruby perform a scene that's basically copied from the end of the world, even sharing the same space station style setting, and to a lesser extent, 73 yards repeating ideas of turn left and years and years. This retreading spun as something new is something I despise. I would rather have something absolutely new that doesn't work than lazy writing that borrows an idea here and there that we've already seen. It just doesn't vibe with RTD trying to renew the show, nor does it feel natural to Doctor Who's ever-changing premise. This is probably only enhanced by just how many episodes RTD wrote in a row. He wrote all 360 of specials, the Christmas special, and 6 episodes of Series 14, barring Rogue and Boom. He's given writing updates regarding future seasons, and it just seems he's writing pretty fast. I just hope that he's making sure to take in criticism and polish those scripts, as a lot of the issues in Series 14 could easily have been fixed with a few quick tweaks. And perhaps they weren't fixed just because of the crunch of production time. Series 15 was already written before Series 14 aired, so RTD already feels very confident about going forwards with what he's doing. I just hope that if this means more big swings, that the show won't lose sight of smaller details and moments of downtime. I admire Russell's bold mentality, but I'm also a little cautious. I really hope we get a more diverse writer's room in the next series, but with only 8 episodes, and Moffat writing the Christmas special, it does make it harder to include that freshness while having RTD write a good chunk of episodes. Moffat's return too is welcome, but it has a lot of the repetitive problems seen with RTD, so it does feel like the show is almost putting on the appearance of being new, while actually feeling very recycled in its storytelling. Russell is clearly bringing back people like Moffat out of respect and reverence, but it does contribute to that feeling that the show has had its best days behind it, and that he wants to collaborate with old mutuals over adding new voices into the mix. Even with the new spin-offs, we're seeing returning actors as new characters, and Pete Matai of the Chibnall era involved writing. I admire choosing Pete given the lack of reverence for Chibnall's era, but that's once again another Doctor Who writer we've seen before. If Russell really wants to make things new, Dan's sequences aren't going to cut it. Instead, it's believing in a new approach, and his love of references and classic Who really undermines that. Russell's first era consciously detached itself from the classic show, but RTD's ego is too big to not key into his own old stuff, and it's definitely an issue for me. I love nostalgia as much as the next person, but it's too easy to rely on that, and eventually it becomes something you struggle to escape from. It's also much easier to rely on the knowledge that people like this old thing instead of taking a risk by creating something new that people could grow to love just as much, and that's a risk he took in 2005. Doctor Who should embrace such a risk head on in its storytelling if it's to continue to evolve. However, I also think Russell is in a very different place now than he was in the early 2000s. RTD is a gay man, and many see his idea of a time war as taking inspiration from the AIDS crisis, drawing many parallels. Much of the Doctor's journey could have reflected Russell's idea of love, isolation, and more. I think that after his husband's passing, 15 facing the god of death might be where Russell's at creatively, a metaphorical way of writing a resolution to what he's personally been through, wanting a companionship with no darkness and a character who is in a lighter position. Sutek being the god of death following the Doctor throughout time, and then the Doctor defeating him at a different point in his life, that feels like RTD really put himself onto paper in a real way, and a pretty powerful way to be honest. But it translates as nonsense on screen. Perhaps Russell thinks the world of today needs a less burdened Doctor, and that's why 15 is so jovial and this new era is so bright. Looking at things this way does make you see his era very differently, but ultimately my points still stand. Something about this era just feels a little too tidy, and I can't quite pinpoint it. This kind of problem happens with all long-running shows, and I have to reinforce that I really loved Series 14, and I am so excited for Series 15. I love the new Doctor, I love the new companion, and I love Russell T Davies. But I do have some criticisms, and I wanted to talk about them. However, none of them negate the joy that I find in Doctor Who. Every episode is so fun to watch and so euphoric. It's a comfort show for me, and it continues to be. If you liked this video, please subscribe and consider joining Patreon. Links are in the description below. I would also like to give a special thank you to Starfleet Sohail, who supports me on Patreon. You can find him at Starfleet Sohail on YouTube and Twitter. But most importantly, thank you for watching.